So this morning I had this fascinating conversation with some of my patrons on Patreon through a Zoom meeting. And I periodically will have Zoom meetings with board level members. Those are those that have really stepped up. I started a Patreon some time ago just as self-defense, and I encourage all of you to come join me there. And you can join as a free member, and then you're there just in case anything goes haywire with YouTube. Some strange things have happened. It's patreon.com, Professor Gerdes explains. But these specific members there was undergraduates, graduates, colleagues, and board members as different levels beyond free, right? Anybody can come join for free. And these were some of the board members. And it's really interesting. When I listen to my viewers, I have learned so much. I really have learned so much, and I'm so grateful. But when I listen to them, and I'm going to show you a clip, I really understand a lot more of why you all watch. Like, because you have some backstory, you have some connection one way or another, or you just really care about what's going on in the world, or you're worried about, like, hey, I saw this in World War II, and this is what happened, and this is what could happen. And you're trying to think toward the future of what's going to happen. I mean, we even got into some speculation about, like, what will happen after the war and that sort of thing. And again, that's all speculation. That's not hard news. But I want you to hear some of this conversation because this is a microcosm of much of my audience. And I just want to thank you all for being so engaged and caring about Ukraine. Okay, here's the conversation.
My great-grandfather and his brother were executed by Stalin thugs when they were doing purges. And my family on my grandfather's side, they were deported to Kazakhstan and they were left in the field during the winter. So my great-grandmother just died, and my grandfather and his brother, they were about 6 years old and 7 or 8, something like that. They were actually orphans in a village in Kazakhstan, and they were surviving on scraps.
Wow.
So that's so my grandfather, he hated Stalin with gusto.
Oh yeah.
I would
So
imagine.
I have friends and family in Ukraine right now, so that makes it even harder.
It boggles my mind to think about the oppression that has happened to the Russian people over a millennia. It's been basically as long as Russia's been in existence.
Well, human beings are horrible to each other in multiple ways, but there are some that are just like they really
Extra
are
bad.
perfecting the art of being horrible to each other. I was going to ask Alexander how he saw, like, so if you're from Ukraine, Holodomor, that kind of, what kind of background was there in through your line or your family's remembrance or that sort of thing?
Yeah, both my parents, they survived Holodomor. It was much more difficult for my dad's family because the Kiev, it's a big city. It was really difficult to find any food. So till the last of his days, he died in 2016. He would not allow to leave a dinner table with the bread left on it. My mom's
That's my childhood.
Isn't that interesting too? Though, so my grandfather was born in 1900. He's an his father immigrated from Ireland, so the potato famine was kind of back in their mind. And beyond that, there was the Great Depression in the U.S. So like when he died, my cousin and my uncle were like throwing out his books, and they were like throwing out. I wish they wouldn't, because I would love to inherit them, but I wasn't nerdy enough at the time yet. But when he died, they're throwing out his books, and they see money flying out. He kept money stashed in his books, like that, like things print on you from historical experience. So now let me circle back to how you were talking about. It's almost hard to keep up with you guys. You're talking about World War II and the American view as opposed to the German view. What was the Russian view? What was the Ukrainian view of what you were taught about World War II? That's what I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, so my dad did explain to me. So first I was learning, of course, from school, and when I was trying to talk to my dad about it, he disillusioned me or disabused me of my illusion of what was happening. He did tell me about the Ribbentrop Act, Hitler-Ribbentrop, about Soviet occupation of Poland, of betraying the Soviet Union, betraying Poland and stacking it in a bag about the Finland War and how miserably Soviets lost that war, shameful and miserably. And nonetheless, Western allowed Soviets to keep the land there. It's a part of the Finland was kept by Soviets. So that's the short answer. So kind of I did know the history, and we were listening to, and I was listening to the Voice of America in Odessa, and the BBC. So and I was learning English early, so I kind of did not have those illusions about how good the Soviet Union is. I really did not like the country. And Reagan was the first thing when I heard when he said the Soviets are the empire of evil. My thought was finally someone in the West understands what the Soviet Union is.
Yep.
Right. Was there Patton was during World War II, but after World War II, Patton was very, very active in criticizing the Soviet Union. Did any of that get to you guys at all? How he was
Good question.
critical and should take those territories off of Russia and continue the war into Russia? Was you even aware of that?
No.
Okay. I wasn't until I became more of a history buff. So
Yeah, Patton, it's like if you're one step out in front of the people, you're a leader. If you're 10 steps out, you're a martyr. He saw what was
Good expression.
he saw what was going to happen, and yeah. So who
I
just
agree.
joined us? Murray James. Murray, thank you for joining. Where are you coming from?
Oh, g'day, Prof. I'm in Brisbane, Australia.
Okay,
Finally.
welcome.
ears were burning. We were talking about Australia.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then
Okay.
how you found your way here and to us, and
All
like
right.
what you're in.
Okay, so I found my way here because my mother was born in Ukraine.
Mm.
And she came to Australia as a refugee in 1949.
Pause.
Okay. And
She was born in 41 and left. Yeah, left in, because of Stalin. The famine, the last time Russia invaded. And so I found my way here through, I guess, my family history.
so I was asking them about how they saw before you got in, Murray, how they saw World War II, what they were taught
Mm,
about World War II. So John and I are on the same page as Americans, having grown up here, and we're hearing from Alex and Alexander. Alexander is Ukrainian. Alex grew up in Russia, and so
mm,
how did you hear it? And then I don't think we heard Alex's
mm.
version of it, but I'm assuming that it's somewhat like the Victory Day parade kind of sentiment. So,
Right. We definitely were being told that Victory Day is May 9th, for example, and that the primary role in World War II was the Soviet Union. It was definitely swept under the rug that Hitler and Stalin made a pact to divide Europe, and Soviet Union attacked Finland, Soviet Union attacked Poland before Hitler attacked Soviet Union. And that part was all, and to the point, that even bringing this up was like, you don't like your country. It's like, oh, fuck off, like it is history. Like, what do you mean, like, I don't like my country? But, when we talk about the help from, say, United States, it was always brought into the light that it was somehow convenient or profitable for United States to do that. And they only entered the war like when it's all over, and they were just trying to grab a continent. Yeah. So and it was always blowing my mind, like, what? Like,
what continent did we take, by the way?
That was the imperialistic paradigm they're trying to attach to the US.
Right.
That's really interesting. That does jive with what I understand about what you would have been taught. So the Russians actually, or Soviets actually, were the leader in taking losses. I mean,
But
as far
because
as
of this
strategy.
Stalin's stupid strategy,
Yeah.
it's not because Germans were attacking Russians or more than anyone else. It's just the Stalin's stupid position that he did not care a single
Brought him
life.
into the- Yeah.
The
No,
willingness
he
to
did not.
throw bodies willy-nilly at the enemy. Scorched earth.
Murray's saying
they have
no.
much
What
option.
And he was Georgian, right?
Stalin was originally Georgian.
Yeah, Georgian, yes.
Yes.
Jugashvili, he was last name. Jugashvili.
So right now, if you look at what is happening in Russia,
Hold on a second. Hold that thought, because Murray was saying no to when we were talking about meat wave and losses. What was the no part?
Oh no, I was just saying that. And look, I was just recognizing that Russia is a conglomerate of different cultures.
But I agree
Right?
with you. It is not. It's just Putin believes that there is no Ukraine. Ukraine is part of Russia. You cannot
Yes.
change it with anything. No treaty unless there is independent Ukraine. Even in one city, Lviv, it will not let him sleep at night.
Mm.
that is
Ukraine
right.
should not be on the map. That's
Yeah,
his goal. No Ukraine on the map.
He looks at Ukraine as the prodigal son. You know, it's going to come back into the fold. And
Putin wouldn't stop if he's not stopped. Let's say that we even stop and win completely in Ukraine. Northern Kazakhstan is going to be the next one. Or maybe Lithuania, and he will challenge and see if a 5/5 Article of NATO is going to work. Because I'm not sure that it will. Like, does Europe and West has in them to go to the war and win it? Putin will challenge that. Like, are you ready to go and to kill or be killed? Because like we're getting to that.
So I think you're onto something, and I think there's a greater threat to the former Soviet states that are part of the Commonwealth than there is to NATO. Does that make sense? Like if you're a former, like they were just saber rattling about Armenia the other day, right? But I don't know that they'll stand up like Ukrainians will. When I started paying attention here, I was like, wow, Zelensky, I need ammunition, not a ride. He's like that's I thought he was an exceptional leader, and then I learned that he's just a manifestation of Ukrainian character. Like there's a difference between somebody early on, he was Australian, said, yeah, the and this wasn't to be derogatory, but just a difference in cultural thinking. Russians are peasants, Ukrainians are Cossacks, and what he was saying was the Russians were just gonna just do whatever, but Ukraine had this like long history of being like, no, we're these independent, we're the right, and I think there's something true to that, and so that makes me wonder, Alex, if Russia were to invade another one of the former Soviet states, a Commonwealth cooperation state, whatever, would these other nations stand up, or would they just knuckle under like Chechnya eventually did?
do you really think that he's going to pull the Hitler blunder and open up multiple fronts?
Right.
I
don't
do
know. So, like, let's say that Putin pulls back from Ukraine. Like, let's say we have complete victory. Let's say that he said, like, oh, like we pulling troops from back from Crimea, as Ben Hodges says, like Crimea is unattainable. All right, so they pull troops, like from Zaporizhia region, like from Kherson region, like all Donbass is clear. He will invade. Let's say that Ukraine joins NATO, or there are enough security guarantees, just to understand that okay, Ukraine is not attainable. He will go to Kazakhstan. He will promote, so he will continue to sow chaos, destruction, and death unless he's stopped. It's pretty much like what he does. Like throughout, like if you trace back every single decision he was making during his rule was preparing specifically for this.
Yeah.
So and he was killing anyone. Like for example, Nemtsov. He was Russian opposition political figure. He was killed on Putin's orders, just right in front of Kremlin. pretty much like on a birthday or before a birthday of Putin, so like here is a present, and he was pretty much like saying the same, and he was saying that that Putin is insane and he will invade Ukraine after talking with him at length in personal meeting. Could be just he was killed because of that. But if you look at what was done before, like even something as innocent as increasing a retirement age, it was preparation of just gobbling up Ukraine and keeping cost, like all this pension cost and social cost are low. So like all of this, like his entire strategy, his entire life, his entire focus is about invading and conquering. Like that needs to be understood. It's not a fluke that he invaded Ukraine. It's not a fluke that he invaded Georgia. It's not a fluke that he invaded Moldova.
Not a bug.
Do you think it was an error in his calculus? Did he really think that Ukraine was going to capitulate in 3 days?
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I was very surprised when I saw Ukrainians fighting. I think we need to make a difference between ethnic Ukrainians, political Ukrainians, ethnic Russians, political Russians, because in Ukraine, we must not forget there are many ethnic groups, nationalities fighting common enemy,
Well, we should never speak of your ethnicity per se. We should be, are you Ukrainian? Are you Russian? Because that was one of my questions for the professor is, you have occupied territories. Who stayed? Were they Russian aligned?
So did they stay because they couldn't get out, or did they stay because they wanted to? Right.
Or did they stay because their home was there?
Well, my experience is that the two people that don't move are the poor and the elderly.
Okay.
And people who are sympathetic. Like my home is here, like why I'm supposed to be moving, so like I'm gonna stay, like this is where I was born and I'm gonna fight.
The elderly tend to be that way, yes.
But you also have sympathizers, and
even
in the American Revolution, you had 20% loyalists to Britain. So that's going to be a factor as well, even in Ukraine. And just like, look, the Ukrainians are using this with Russians who are like, look, I'm tired of Putin, so I'm going to go help blow something up. And the Russians are using this with Ukraine. I talked about this today, how they're on social media trying to get Ukrainians to blow up stuff, right? I mean, there's a factor there. So that's it. Tell me what you thought about this. I mean, I thought it was a great conversation. There's more to it, and I can release a little bit more. By the way, I got their permission, said, hey, does anybody mind if I share this? And this was only just a handful of my patrons, even of my board members. It was only a handful, but it was a great conversation. And if you like it, maybe I'll release a little bit more of it. But please, if you're not on Patreon, please come and join me, even as a free member. That's okay. I'm not trying to like twist money out of you. I tell you all to go spend money on support for Ukraine, like Greg Terry projects and things along those lines. So that's not the motivation here. But I do want to have a safe harbor just in case something goes wrong with YouTube. Again, it's patreon.com/Professor Gerdes Explains. Thank you for your time and the likes and the shares and the subscribes. Thank you to my board members, and thank you all for being the kind of people that care about Ukraine.